Hello and welcome back to the Karma Stories podcast. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today I have 4 stories for you from the Malicious Compliance subreddit. The Karma Stories podcast is published to all major podcasting platforms, and you can also read along on YouTube under our @Karma Stories podcast handle. If you have a story you'd like to submit to the podcast, you can do so by email at karmastoriespod@gmail.com. Alright, on to today's compliance stories. Let's jump right in. This story comes to us from 0x1337 Dude. You want it fast? Fine. But don't cry when it blows up in your face. I work at a big retail chain where the stockroom is the Wild West and chaos is the norm. We recently got a new supervisor, Sarah, who seems to think she's running the Navy SEALs or something. She's obsessed with speed, constantly on us about how we need to get things done faster. Doesn't matter if it's done right, as long as it's done fast. So one day, during peak restock time when we're drowning in boxes, Sarah storms in with her clipboard and her best "I'm in charge" face. She corners me while I'm halfway through a massive inventory check and says, "You're taking way too long with these, just get through them quickly, we don't have time to check every single item." I try to explain that rushing inventory checks is a bad idea, but she cuts me off with a condescending smile. "If you can't speed this up, maybe this job isn't the right fit for you," she says, all smug like she just dropped a bombshell. "Alright Sarah, you want speed? Let's see how fast things can spiral out of control." So I take her words to heart and decide to follow her instructions exactly. The next day, I'm scheduled for another inventory check. Instead of my usual process where I count everything carefully, I decide to play Sarah's game. I glance at the shelves and make up numbers that seem about right. I don't even bother opening boxes to check if what's inside matches the labels. I fly through the whole process, marking items off like I'm speedrunning a video game. What usually takes me 2 hours, I finish in just 20 minutes. Sarah sees me finishing up and I can see her eyes light up. She walks over, grinning ear to ear. "See, that wasn't so hard, was it? If you keep this up, you might even get a little bonus this month," she says, patting herself on the back for her brilliant leadership skills. Fast forward a week, and the store manager Mike calls an emergency meeting. The inventory reports have come back, and they're a total disaster. According to the report, we're missing thousands of dollars worth of products. It looks like we either lost half the stock, or we're running some underground black market. Mike's pissed, customers are complaining about out-of-stock items, and the regional manager is breathing down his neck. Mike turns to Sarah and asks her to explain how this could have happened. Sarah, trying to save face, immediately points at the team and says, "They must have messed up the counts, they weren't thorough enough." She's throwing us under the bus without a second thought. This is where I decide to strike. I raise my hand and say, "Actually, I did exactly what Sarah told us to do." She said to skip checking the items and just get it done as quickly as possible. I was just following orders. You could hear a pin drop. Mike slowly turns to Sarah, his expression going from confused to furious. "Is this true?" he asks, narrowing his eyes at her. Sarah's stammering now, trying to backpack. "Well, I didn't mean to skip it entirely. I just meant to speed it up." But it's too late. The damage is done. Mike's already fuming. "So you decided to cut corners on the one thing that affects our bottom line. You do realize we have to do a full recount now because of this mess, right?" And that's exactly what happens. The next day, Sarah and a few unlucky team members spend 12 hours redoing the entire inventory check from scratch. The rest of us get to enjoy watching them sweat it out while we handle our regular duties. It's glorious. As they're counting, I make sure to walk by every so often and ask, "Need any help speeding things up? I could skip a few checks for you if that helps." The look on Sarah's face every time is pure rage, mixed with embarrassment. She can't say anything because she knows I'm just doing what she asked for. By the end of it, we found thousands of dollars in discrepancies. Turns out, rushing through inventory checks leaves a lot of room for errors. Who knew? The regional manager isn't happy, and Sarah ends up getting a formal warning. She stops harping on us about speed after that, and even tries to be extra nice whenever I'm around. Guess she realized that maybe, just maybe, some tasks shouldn't be rushed. The best part, a couple of weeks later, I get a small bonus for outstanding attention to detail in helping fix the inventory mess. Oh, the irony. Sarah couldn't even look me in the eye when I got the bonus slip. And every time she walks by me now, I just give her a friendly smile and say, "Don't worry, boss, I'm working as fast as you want." Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called Popular Drummer 7989. It says, "Fail faster. I can't tell you how my blood boils when I hear unqualified leaders use it as an attempt to motivate productivity. The best response is, as you wish." This was Sarah's F around and find out moment. Too bad she got to keep her job. Another commenter down below called Gymnast Girl said, "Sounds like she might have learned the lesson. You can do two things at this point. Continue to be antagonistic and make an enemy, except that she learned and treat her like a human who has learned and move on. You might gain a better coworker out of the latter." There is a huge divide between a good supervisor and, well, Sarah. A good supervisor is going to come to you, realize that things aren't being done fast enough, and work with you to see how it can get done faster, maybe even help you get it done. Sarah took the approach of, "I don't know how to do my job, so you probably don't know how to do yours either, but you need to do yours faster." Here's hoping that with the reprimand and the write-up and now knowing how to do things properly, Sarah becomes a better supervisor. This story comes to us from Cheesy Friend. "Let me get your change." I work at a gas station in Oregon, with half the pumps being self-serve and half being mini service, which means that we are there to pump your gas for you, but not obligated to do anything else, like wash your windshield. But we do when we're asked to be nice. There's this lady that comes in almost every day and gets like $5 or $10 worth of gas, asks us to wash her windshield, and never tips. She's really weird about it, like it's her little power trip. Last time she was in, it was raining, and she still smugly asked me to wash her windshield. And being the hardcore customer service guy, I did, but then I thought twice about it after the fact. I go that length for nice folks, but she's not nice. She's bitchy and whiny and weird. So windshield lady comes in today and hands me $9 for gas, and then, as usual, asks me to wash her windshield with a smug look on her face. I said I would, but then by the time I got back out, there were a good 8 cars on the pumps. I told her, "I'm sorry, I can't do your windshield right now, it's too busy." Well, she gets really snotty with me and has me stop the pump, which means that since she paid cash, she needs her change. "Okay, you'll get your change." I went inside and told my coworker I need the change on pump too, but make sure to vend extra pennies from the safe and put 50 of them in there loose. He looked at me like I was crazy, but then I explained who it was for, and so he gladly handed me over the change. By the way, we have to wait in line inside the attached convenience store with other customers to get change for gas, because our pump guy often doesn't have their own till open for a shift. So, as I was standing in line to get windshield lady's change, she came inside and was death glaring our other customers, and then must have seen me waiting and went back out to her car. She was already getting snotty with me the moment I walked back out to her car, so I put the $3 bills in her hand and then an absolute cascading buttload of pennies and a few nickels on them. "Sorry, we're short on silver," I said. The look on her face, that was the most satisfying use of pennies ever. She sounded like Milton from Office Space. She was still stammering when she was driving away, and I didn't listen to or identify a single word she said. Hoping this will discourage her from coming back, but if it doesn't, then we will once again have a shortage of silver change. Because, alas, that is the economy we are in. Times are tough. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called Equivalent Salary 357. It says, "Make sure she pays before you start the pump. Tomorrow, if she arrives with 1,000 pennies, refuse to pump her gas until you have counted the payment. It would be a shame if you lost count around 500 and 600 and have to start over. A real shame. Be sure to apologize profusely." Another commenter down below called Pepperoni42 said, "Well done. If she tries again, start by slowly and carefully cleaning the passenger side windshield or the back windshield. When the pump is done dispensing the small amount of gas she bought, pull the squeegee away and tell her to have a nice day. But you didn't finish the windshield! You're right. There's just not enough time to clean the entire windshield during a $5 fill. I have other work to do now, but you're welcome to finish the windshield yourself. Say this in your peppiest customer service voice while walking away. Ideally, into the building and straight through an employee's only door. This customer just sounds like an absolutely wonderful person. I mean, who has to take the time to make little power plays against a service worker to make them feel better about themselves for the day? Like, what the heck is that? OP, if this person is nasty and belligerent to you every time they come in, make sure your manager knows about it, because you can refuse service to a customer if they're being a dick. This story comes to us from Najee 2020. Treat the fire drill as if it was real. My great uncle passed away at 97 and heard this great story of malicious compliance at his memorial service today. He worked for over 50 years at the same confectionery factory, and for most of that time, he was a boiler room attendant. This was just after World War II, and at the time, most of the machines and processes were powered by steam, even the heating. The steam was generated by massive boilers, and it was his job to monitor the boilers to make sure nothing went wrong. These boilers could potentially explode, causing great damage. By law, the boiler had to be attended at all times, and there were shifts that watched them around the clock, even when the factory was closed. They took so long to heat up that it was easier and cheaper to leave them running at night. After about 10 years of no incidents, the company hired a leading hand who would also act as the safety officer. He had been a sergeant in the army, and he took his job quite seriously, being quite the disciplinarian. He instituted a multitude of new procedures, some warranted, some just to establish control. The first time he wanted to conduct a fire drill, he went around telling the staff that when they heard the alarm, they had to exit the building in an orderly fashion. He got to the boiler room, and it was my great uncle on duty that day. He informed him he would not be able to evacuate with everyone else and had to stay with the boiler. The safety officer didn't give him time to explain why. He just bluntly informed him that he was to treat the fire drill as if it was a real fire, no exceptions. When the fire bell finally rang, my uncle did exactly what he was told to do. He turned off the gas to the boilers, vented all the built-up steam, purged the water, and joined everyone outside. At the evacuation point, they were doing a head count when the production manager spotted my uncle and immediately approached him and asked what he was doing away from the boiler. He said he was participating in the fire drill as instructed, but not to worry as he had shut the boiler down completely. The color immediately drained from the manager's face. He was asked how long it would take to bring the boilers back online. Apparently, it would take hours alone just to fill the boilers with water and heat them up. The big issue was that because they had done an emergency purge, they were required to inspect every pipe, joint, and connection for damage before to make sure it was safe to start to reheat. The other boilermen were called in and they got paid double time to work through the night to get the boiler ready for the next day. Production staff all got sent home but still got paid for the day as it wasn't their fault the factory couldn't run. It cost them a day's production as well. Safety officer did keep his job, but for the next 40 years, the boiler staff were all exempt from fire drills. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called NotRasta8913. It says, if only there was a way to simulate a real evacuation without the boilers being shut down. Like, have another crew who knew it was a drill ready to take over when the alarm sounded, and then the crew on duty could touch simulate the shutdown and evacuate. Okay, well that sounds like a great idea. Do you think the company managers who are trying to pinch every penny are actually going to want to bring in extra people to do a fire drill? I don't think so. I also have to point out down in the comments there was another person that said, steam is just angry water. That is amazing. This story comes to us from Joseph DK23. You must cite sources for all homework assignments. So I'm working on my master's, and several weeks ago, we had an assignment to give our thoughts on a discussion topic. I completed the assignment with no sources because it's my opinion. Why would I be using any sources in the first place? Well, I got a message asking me to resubmit and include my sources. When I asked about it being my opinion, I got back, every assignment you submit this semester must have proper citations. Well, a few weeks later, we have an assignment to watch 5 videos and write a few key points from each, should be a page or less. Well, I made sure to include the proper citations for each and every video, which ended up taking half the page. Now, I just have to include a bullet point with a summary of each video. OP added an edit and said, "Edit, because everyone keeps saying that I should be citing sources for anything, you're right. However, this is an online university like University of Phoenix, and the teachers really do not care. I have never received less than full points for simply completing an assignment. Each class has discussions and assignments. Every professor, except this one, treated discussions like a classroom discussion, wanting people to express their opinions and knowledge. If you have a good source, good. If not, that's okay. This is the only class that's required sources for these discussions." Jumping down to the comments on this one, we have one from a user called YogiT. It says, "Interesting. At my university, citations are treated as an appendix and don't count for your pages. Also, I think it is very good of this professor to try and teach you academic writing, as you are supposedly doing a master's." Another commenter down below called the Silver Falcon said, "You're going to have a bad time if you can't admit you're wrong on something so minor, especially when you start getting feedback on major projects. Do you really want to fight this particular battle, or do you want your degree?" Yep, in the comment section for this one, pretty much everybody unanimously agrees that OP was the person in the wrong. In this case, OP, I don't think they're just asking you for citations. I think they're asking you to look into what you're doing a little bit more, maybe spend some time finding arguments from other sources that you can use, and not just saying, "Oh, my source is just, trust me, bro." If you enjoy daily Reddit stories, I encourage you to follow and add us to your favorites on whichever podcasting platform you enjoy the most. And if you're watching and listening on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button and drop a like on the video. It really helps us out. I thank you for watching and listening. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.